Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, your home for the questionable advice for the bewildered and befuddled, random pop culture recommendations, and conversations about you feelings. Be sure to send in your letters seeking advice on our anonymous form at dearromancewriter.com.
Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network, a podcast community of everything romance and romance related. If you're into romance fiction of any flavor, the Frolic Podcast Network includes shows that feature book club style discussions, author interviews, comedy, critique, and fantastic conversations as well.
It includes some of the most innovative, interesting, and entertaining podcasts, including Kinda Dating, Crappy Friends, My Imaginary Friends, Smart Podcast Trashy Books, and Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast. What does this mean for you, the listener? More shows to enjoy and more opportunities for us to introduce you to great episodes and new podcasts you'll love. Find new shows to add to your podcast subscriptions at frolic.media/podcasts. Now on to this week's show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Dear Romance Writer. We are super excited to have you with us today. Before we get started with our guests, we just want to introduce ourselves. I am Avery Flynn.
I am Zio Axelrod.
And we've got one more, Roan.
Oh, sorry, I said it at the same time.
Oh, did Well, we remember to introduce ourselves this time, just at the same time.
Yeah, we are Avery Flynn, Zio Axelrod, and Roan Parrish, and we are joined today by the super amazing Leslie Penelope. I highly recommend, if you guys aren't watching on YouTube, to at least stop in and check it out, because she's got book porn behind her.
Serious book porn.
Yeah, serious book porn behind her.
It almost looks like one of those green stream backdrops. It's like perfect book selection.
Yeah, people ask me that. These are my real books.
These are my real books. So yeah, go so you can zoom in and see what's on her shelves.
Right.
Be really creepy about it. It's okay. Leslie, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us today. Please tell our listeners a little bit about you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. So I write epic fantasy and paranormal romance as L. Penelope, and my fantasy series, Earthsinger Chronicles, just wrapped up this week. I released the final book.
So good.
Requiem of Silence. So it is 4 novels. There are 3 prequel novellas. It's 8 years of my life, and it's done.
8 years?
I started writing the first one 8 years ago. Yeah, it's been crazy. So it's a lot of work.
After 8 years, is this like, do you wake up tomorrow and go, oh my God? Or do you wake up tomorrow and go, oh my God? Which is it?
Yes. It's very, I'm relieved to be away from it as much as I love it. It's like, I've got other projects, other worlds. I'm doing standalones now, which is like, yes, for at least like 3 years of standalone. I might sneak in another series too, but yeah, like I just want to like go and deal with all the ideas that I've published other things over the past 8 years too, but it's just, this has been such a huge focus.
Yes.
So yeah.
It's a fabulous series. Everyone should go read it right now. Well, after they listen to this.
You can go buy it while you're listening.
Yeah.
We'll let you do that.
Multitask.
Yeah, we're kind. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we can go ahead and dive right into our letter. Before we do that, though, I have to let you know that this episode of Dear Romance Writer is brought to you by Kensington's newest title from Cat Martin, called One Last Kiss. Colorado rancher Sam Bridger will do anything for a friend, even if that means babysitting a rich city girl who knows more about high fashion than horses. Blonde, beautiful Liberty Hale looks like a model and acts like a spoiled brat. But Sam senses another side to the young woman who's lost so much of her family, and he can't deny the heat just one look at her ignites. A 3-day pack trip into the mountains will test them both, especially when one of the ranch's guests takes a sinister interest in Libby. Dun, dun, dun! Suddenly, their unexpected chance at love is overshadowed by the terrifying possibility that their very lives are at risk. Okay, y'all. That sounds pretty darn good. I am looking forward to this one. You can find One Last Kiss by Cat Martin wherever books are sold, and you can find out more about Kensington books at kensingtonbooks.com.
Okay, so our letter today is, we pulled from the Washington Post. We're having a really great time sort of like stealing these letters from other places that we specifically want to talk about, but you should still send us your letters either via our form on dearromancewriter.com or hit us up on any of the social media platforms, because we would also love to be answering letters that are specific to you.
Yes.
Okay. Despite all the amazing things people out there did for one another and regular quote unquote good news reports on TV and online, I've really started to dislike people, all people, everywhere. It seems like for every medical professional sacrificing their time and safety for the greater good, there were 4 morons screaming or spitting or shooting at people over masks. For every reasonable guideline to help me protect my kids and elderly dad, there was a cabal of idiots protesting against them with guns. I saw these reports of insanity and thought it might not be so bad for the virus to take a few people out. I don't want to be this person. Did I get COVID in my soul? Signed, Upset with Me.
Raise your hand if you can relate with this letter.
Oh yeah. Just so you know, we're all raising our hands.
Yeah, exactly. Goodness me. Yeah, I think not just the pandemic, but the stuff that happened before it, like in the US politically and the world politically, revealed so much about us as a society, as a Western society anyway. Just took back, pulled all the scabs, like removed all the bandages, like all the little things that we sort of like happily skipped past, thinking that was like a minor thing in a minor corner of some place remote from us, just like slapped us in the face collectively, I think, as a society. So you are not alone, Carolyn, sorry. You're not alone, I don't think.
Oh, no, not in the least. Dude, even for like people who like people like me, like I genuinely like people, there are so many times when I am like, no, I don't wanna. I can't deal with assholes anymore. You know, it's like okay, now I'm going to be 47 this month. So, you know, I've also reached the fuck it 40s. So that could also be a part of it, followed by the no fucks at all 50s, which I'm really looking forward to. So that could factor in as well. But like the tolerance level has become exhausting. And for people who have had to deal with this bullshit, all of it, not just COVID related, but societal related and everything else for a lot longer and a lot worse than I have, it's overall exhausting for everybody. So I don't think this person is alone. No. And that line, did I get COVID in my soul, just about broke my heart. Number one, it's a great line. I would like to steal it.
Going into a song.
Yeah, exactly. That's the song title. Can we have that as a playlist title? COVID in my soul. I honestly, I mean, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about ideas on ways to avoid feeling this. Because while I can completely empathize in feeling this, I don't know that I have any kind of solution besides, you know, stepping back and stepping away from people and just being like, you know what? Twitter is too toxic for me right now. Yeah. Human beings are too toxic for me right now. I'm going to Instacart my life and let everything be delivered by UPS. I just can't deal with them. You know,
welcome to Zero's world.
Yeah, that's all I have at this point. So please tell me you guys have something better.
I mean, being in a bubble like that can be really helpful. You know, I don't generally watch the news anymore. There was a time like in January, around January 6th, I was glued, of course, to the news for days. And after that, I was completely exhausted and I went right back to ignoring the news, or, you know, because the news isn't really there to inform us. It's there to make money. And so if you can find like nonprofit news sources that are there to actually, you know, that care about informing you about the events, then, you know, that is a way to do it. But everybody has an agenda and I get tired of other people's agendas, you know, so being a little bit more ignorant can, you know, we want to be, you know, good citizens and knowledgeable and stuff, but at a certain point you have to take care of yourself, and ignorance is bliss, you know, so retreating into the bubble away from other people so that you're not constantly assaulted by their foolishness. The person mentions the good news reports. Like sometimes I do seek out those good news websites for just shots of happiness and people treating each other well, and trying to remind myself that I do believe more people are good than are not, and more people are compassionate and loving than we're just focused on the negative. And that's a human brain thing. There's like that psychological phenomenon where you focus on certain things, especially the negative thing, like reviews. There'll be 100 good reviews, and that one star, you're like, your entire week. But if you read the 5 stars, they don't really balance it, unfortunately, even though they should. And so knowing it, I think, is helpful, like recognizing that, okay, I'm focusing on the negative. That is actually not the only thing that's out there. There are positive things happening, and there are still good, compassionate, people who are loving and kind and care about other people and trying to protect other people and all of that. And, but knowing that you're going to focus on the bad things more. And if you have to retreat into that bubble, I think it's perfectly okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, self-care was sort of like a throwaway term. I think that some people dismissed, say 2-3 years ago. It was like, you said self-care, and they're like, oh, okay, snowflake, you know what I mean? And it was like that. And then over like 2020, I saw apps come out and like commercials from, all kinds of like celebrities and stuff talking about self-care and getting, online therapy and all kinds of stuff. I think social media, I mean, they talk about this sometimes, how like they emotionally manipulate you, especially like Facebook and Twitter will show you things to like keep you clicking and keep you scrolling and get you commenting.
It's the outrage that gets you.
Exactly. That
gets clicks.
And talk about fuel for the fire, the last, like 4 years that we had. And then add a pandemic on top of that, they're like, let's keep them coming back. So like, I think looking for those, another thing that we used to laugh at, those human interest stories. Like on the news, that was like the last minute of the news segment when I was a kid. They would show like somebody adopting kittens or something like that. And you're like, oh, all the murder and robbery.
Mayhem.
There's still so like when you see people on Twitter going like, oh my God, I've had a shit day, show me kittens. And then like people flood there. Like that still happens. And so I think self-care is a huge like tool in our toolbox that we can use for moments like, because like, you can't really get away from a pandemic. It's like all around us. Like we can't escape physically to anywhere. You can stay in your house, but it's still, you still have to be careful of who you're interacting with and all that sort of health care stuff that you have to do at home. So you can't really get away from it. So I think diving into the things that give you comfort, books, music, film, whatever it is, a phone call with a friend, like whatever that is, just finding those ways to get those moments away from all the negativity, like Leslie said, just limiting yourself to the facts, ma'am, and not allowing yourself to wallow in everything else. I think
so hard though.
And one of the things I think is really interesting about this letter and like the way we talk about this, because I feel like I don't know if you all had this when you were younger, but I feel like my whole teenage years were spent being like, oh, I hate everyone.
I had the mean people suck t-shirt. They used to sell like the sticker and everything.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is to like dig a little bit below the surface and like think about what that actually meant and what it means when we say we hate people. Is like, of course we don't mean we hate every single person, because you can say like I hate everyone, and then what you're talking about is like then a bunch of great people. I think for me, like saying I hate people is about disidentification. It's about looking at the way a certain group of people are responding to something, behaving, a politics that they endorse or whatever, and the thing that you can do that feels like it distances you the most from the thing that they endorse or the thing that they perpetrate is saying that you hate them. And because what that means is what you value is the opposite of everything about them. And I feel like one of the things that's really helpful for me when I get in, because like, as I've said, I have hated everyone since, 1982. In that way is like, I think what it's about is figuring out, like using your disidentification from other people's behavior to figure out what are the behaviors that you want to uplift and endorse. And so in the moments when I'm the most angry at people, the most disgusted with people, the most harmed or hurt by someone's behavior, it's my instinct is always to be like, fucking hate that asshole. I hope they are like pecked apart by crows on top of a mountain. That's like easy. And then I give myself some time to feel that, and I think then what I try to do is say like, what was the worst part of it for me? what was the worst thing about them? Was it like that they're an anti-masker? If that's the thing, I'm like, well, what's the worst part about it? And then I can boil it down, because it's so easy to be like, categorically that's bad, which of course it is to me, but like, what's the worst part of it? The worst part of that for me, if I really drill down, is caring more about your personal preference than you do about other people's safety, which means that you don't value other human life. And I'm like, okay, well, what is the opposite of not valuing human life? The opposite of that is valuing every human life. So like, what are some thoughts that I can think about ways that I know certain people who are acting in a way that values all human life? And I feel like that it gets me to the same place, which is like, people value human life when they leave $100 tip on their bill, or I'm trying to think of all these ones that get in the news, or like let someone like shoot a basketball with their favorite basketball player, show up at someone's door unannounced, you know, that
somebody goes and volunteers, or being that better community member.
Exactly. And I think that like it gets me to the same place as what you all are talking about, which I agree with so much, but it helps me to go through that process of being like, what is the thing that I feel like is being most threatened here or trod upon carelessly, and then like, what is the counterbalance to that? And that helps me like enjoy the piece of the thing for its content, as well as the feeling it creates in me. So like, not just caring about people who rescued a bunch of kittens because kittens are adorable, but caring about it because I'm like, they saw a creature that was struggling and like couldn't make it on their own, and gave something of themselves, whether it was like time or money or space or whatever, to like create a better world for these creatures. And thinking of it as that not only makes me happy because kittens are cute, it makes me happy because I think of that person as someone who's like building a world that is more the kind of world that I feel is valuable to be in. And so I guess I think like one of the things that I would suggest to people, at the risk of sounding like an utter asshole Pollyanna, is like, in those moments when you most are kind of like, I hate everyone, I have COVID in my soul, is being like, who's the person who made me hate them, whose behavior made me hate them? What's the thing that bothers me the most about what they're doing? And what would be the antidote to that, either that I could do myself, or that I could like seek out affirmation is out there in the world. And if that means like volunteering or giving of your own time or giving of your own money, that's wonderful, but we can't all do that every single time we hate someone. It's not realistic for most of us who hate constantly. So then it's like, you seek out the thing that does the same thing, like gets it all going in your brain in the same way, you know?
Do you think this is just an outcome of, for as much as like the internet and social media has helped bring us together, helped you find your niche people that may not have been there, how much easier it is to sort of, you know, there are those squeaky wheel people that are out there. Those are those horrible trolls that are out there, you know.
Well, they found each other too.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of,
but they always had each other. They always had each other.
But they were,
the internet started out like that. I don't know if you know that, but like the internet started out like
it just blows me away, because it seems, for as much as all this stuff is meant to, or I shouldn't say meant, has the potential to really be a positive force, it also really amplifies, you know, it's that coin, you know, the other side of it is it really lets us show our ugly and get people to cheer us on for showing our ugly. And it really helps us almost like stop seeing the humanity in other people. It makes it so easy to do that.
It feels like this is different and new because of the internet, but because I've been doing so much historical research, because I'm writing a historical novel, it's actually not new. I mean, the internet gives us different ways to do this, but if you look at like the politics of the 1870s, I mean, it was insane. Like in newspapers.
Are you talking specifically like American politics? Because like, they were like roasting each other. Like they had like whole newspapers devoting to like people's like love children and mistresses, and it was crazy.
Everything. So it's like, it's not really new. It just, I mean, we're in it now, and it feels like it's worse now than it's ever been before. And Twitter and social media, you know, make it feel worse too, because now everyone has a voice. It's not just
everyone has access
in the newspaper to have the voice. But I think, you know, it's just the way people are. But then what Roan was saying is like, if there's a way to add your positive energy into the world, you know, like hating people is a draw on you, you know. It's like, you forgive other people because that helps you, it doesn't help them. And so when you're thinking about these people that are driving you crazy and they're doing things that you disagree with and that you find harmful, I mean, I think it's a good thing to do whatever you can, whether it's just even just thinking, like changing the way you think about things to put more positive energy into the world as opposed to the negative energy, just for your own well-being.
Yeah. And you see people do things like if they can't donate to a charity that supports the thing that the person is railing against or whatever, they signal boost. Like, you know, not everybody has extra money to do stuff. You can signal boost. You can, you know, use your platform to repeat a message from a place that supports that thing, whatever it is, but putting a little bit of positivity back into the world helps to, like a balm on this thing that we're all dealing with. But I do wonder, and I was talking about this with Mr. X like a couple weeks ago, it seems like all these videos that we're seeing of people sort of losing their shit in public. And I know that, you know, we've had camera phones for a while now, so you can't completely blame it on the fact that everyone has cameras now. It just seems like over the last 18 months or so, there is just more of that going on. And I do wonder if in like 10 years, we're going to hear some report about like the psychological effect of the pandemic on people who had COVID or didn't have COVID or whatever it is. But like everybody's gone through this same psychological trauma and we're all in it. So they can't see the effects of it until we get away from it. I just feel like we're in for some interesting news.
Well, and there may be, even for people who maybe aren't, I mean, they're already showing studies that like long COVID and COVID period, it has neurological effects. How much that expands out, how much that turns out to be completely valid, you know, we're too early to say.
Who had COVID who didn't even know they had it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, there's that part. And then there's also the impact of, and I am by no means saying we should not have had lockdowns because we needed them, but the psychological impact of isolation. And like there's a big reason why we should not have isolation in prisons and other circumstances like that. And that is because it messes with people's heads. People go into survival mode even if their basic needs are being met. They are still in that stress survival mode. And I think a lot of us have been, whether it's because of that or COVID or job losses or thinking about money stresses all the time, all of us have basically been in a stress mode for over a year.
If you ever
kind of breaking.
Seriously. If you speaking of isolation, this is a total side note, but like Roan and I live in Philadelphia and we have a ruin here called the Eastern State Penitentiary. If you've ever seen like those ghost hunter shows or anything like that, they always go there.
I'm already like backing away from my screen. No, don't go inside.
Well, it's what they call a living ruin. You can actually go and tour it. And there's like, I think it's, what's his name? Steve Buscemi does like audio tours for it or whatever.
Wow.
But it was like the model for penitentiary life. It was literally, you go in and you were in a cell. Was it 23 and a half hours a day? You were in this cell with like one tiny window at the top that let light in, and like the guards wore like little slippers and stuff so you couldn't hear them coming. They put your food through the door. Like you were in complete isolation 24 hours a day. And then for like 15 minutes or half an hour, they let you out in the little alley behind your cell by yourself with high walls so that you could get some like air. But that was basically it. And they thought that this was the way to punish people. They're like, okay, they'll be able to reflect and read the Bible and like be remorseful, whatever. And it just drove people insane. You know, and so, but like there were prisons around the world that were like building these models. It's like a wheel, like there's like a central guard tower and then spokes with like cells. It's just crazy. But if you get a chance to like go on Google or whatever and look up Eastern State Penitentiary, the history behind the thought process of putting people in solitary for like a long time, you know, like the entire sentence, 5-10 years, whatever it was, is just scary. So
I literally have chills. That's like so terrifying.
I'm not gonna look that up because I don't want to have nightmares. Okay, I was awake for like 48 hours after Blair Witch, probably. You know, I will still think of like the person standing in the corner, and I'm like, okay, lights.
Oh my gosh, yes. Every time. Yes, we did a photo shoot at Eastern State. For this fashion company I used to work at. As one does. They just like models and like expensive clothes, like, and I, you know, they were like, yeah, you can wander around, just be careful because some of it's crumbling. And like two of us went wandering down one hall. We were like, yeah, no, We just turn it back. Yeah, it's a cool place if you go with like a group of people, and they do like haunted houses there.
High
too.
noon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but isolation's not good for anyone.
Yeah. So basically what we would tell Upset with Me if she was writing to us instead of Carolyn Hacks, the Washington Post, is number one, you're not alone. Number two, try and find a positive outlet, I would say, to be able to do that, and step back and bubble yourself if you need it, because we all do. And that's, I think sometimes it's easy to think of bubbling yourself as taking an easy way out or giving up.
Yeah, there's a guilt aspect to like.
There is a guilt
self-care
aspect to it, but it's, to me, it's sort of like, we just dropped off Ava at college Tuesday. So it was the first flight in over a year, right? So you have like the whole spiel, and Southwest, shout out to the Southwest flight attendants who were hilarious there and back. Thank you. It was much needed. But, they always tell you, put your mask on, your oxygen mask on first before you do somebody else's, right? And self-care in this and having to bubble yourself is very much the same thing. If you want to help take care of other people, whether they are your family, your friends, your community at large, you have to make sure that you're covered first. So, yeah.
COVID in my soul.
COVID in my soul.
Hey.
That's like also the title to like a really depressing and angry Alanis Morissette, You Ought to Know book of poems. I would buy that.
There you go, Alanis. If you're looking for a project, Avery just gave it to you.
Yeah, I would buy that.
Okay, let's go to our What Would You Do segment. I'm not sure where we pulled this from, but it's a good one.
Reddit.
Is it Reddit? I should know that by the opening. Okay, so it is, my 23 female boyfriend, 29 male, says he feels ashamed because I dyed my hair non-natural colors. Okay, can we stop right there and just go into the natural color thing? Because this is a thing. Anyway, this is my first ever post on Reddit. I just wanted some advice. Yesterday, I dyed my hair blue and light blue, split hair dye. Before that, I only told my boyfriend I would have dyed my hair without telling him the colors. We are in a relationship since the beginning of 2019. This is not the first time I've dyed my hair. I had green hair in June 2019, but after that, I only dyed with natural colors. I dyed it last on January 2021, light brown, and now I have blue and light blue. I didn't want him to like it since it's a personal taste, and anyways, I'm not going to have this hair forever. I want to dye it brown again for the last time when this fades, since I'm going to graduate and start working. The thing I didn't expect was him telling me that we would have felt ashamed to be around me. I think she means he would have felt ashamed to be around me with dyed hair. What I understood was, I don't want to be judged by my friends because I have a girlfriend with strange hair. He knows this is not permanent, and I started crying because I felt guilty. Now, a day after, he still doesn't reply to my I love you, which is true. I truly love him. And he told me he got angry because I act like a victim. I'm not acting like a victim. I'm just disappointed and sad that he told me that thing. I really love him. I'm not going to break up with him, but I think he's going to, since everything leads me to think that. I don't have friends to talk to. He's literally the only person I talk to. I never had friends in my life once high school ended. I really don't know what to do. Thanks. Wow. There's a lot in here.
I think
I'm like tuning. I'm gonna tune in with Rowan's advice here. I hate this person.
The boyfriend.
I'm gonna drill it down into
the boyfriend.
why I hate this boyfriend.
Yeah.
Okay, can we just first off acknowledge all of the abusive partner red flags?
Yeah.
That there are, the denial of communication. That is an abuser tactic. The control of physically how
physical appearance
partner presents themselves.
Yeah.
Abusive tactic.
Isolation.
The fact that isolation's like the mother of red flags.
Yeah.
That's like the one where you're like, run, Carol Ann, get towards the light. So yeah, I just had to throw that out there first. I know she says she's not going to break up, but holy crap, does she need to?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the tucked in at the end, this I don't have friends to talk to. I've never had friends since high school is the actual problem.
Yeah.
Here, the hair is far less of an issue. that I'm concerned
this
about.
makes me wonder also, like, what else he's controlling about the, you know, food, clothing, like, I guess friends might be one of them, like who she can talk to,
Right.
or yeah, I got shivers reading this one.
Yeah, and you can't tell from the letter, like what Leslie was saying, if it's that he doesn't want her to have friends and has sort of manipulated that into happening, or if she simply hasn't sought them out, or if she has trouble making friends.
Yeah.
I think that, like, again, like Leslie, like you were saying, it's a problem not to have friends for everything in your life, but especially because then you don't have friends to say things like, hey, your boyfriend's an asshole, and if he cares more about your appearance than you as a person, you should dump him immediately, which is like really all anyone should need to think to dump this dick.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I was so calm after our last letter, and now I'm like all ragey again.
Well, telling her that she's behaving like a victim, that's like alarm bells are just ringing.
Right. All right, one of you is smart enough to remember what the acronym is, where you are basically diffusing the blame and flipping it. Where an abuser, it's like DN something. I don't remember what it is. I'll look it up afterwards and we'll try and put it in the show notes. But it's basically where somebody who is manipulating somebody else or trying to manipulate somebody else will take whatever the argument is, and then they will flip it, and then they will alter the blame of it so that it becomes, you're no longer arguing about how to park a car, for example. You are now arguing about how you should have taken, it's your fault because you should have taken X number of lessons or whatever it may be. So that to me is again what he is doing with this as well, is taking that. And that is such, I'm going to look it up while we're talking.
It's like those apologies that people turn around to make you feel like you need to apologize.
You know what I mean? You feel that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry I made you feel that way, but if you hadn't blah, blah, blah. That's what but the shame thing, like I'm ashamed to be seen with you with this blue hair. It's just,
I mean, this person, she had green hair during this relationship.
Yeah.
So she doesn't mention his reaction to the green hair. And then maybe it was bad because then she immediately only dyed natural hair colors.
Yeah. Let me suppress my entire personality to make you feel better about yourself.
Well,
right. Yeah.
And even if, let's say, there wasn't any of the other, and I can't find the thing, and it's going to make me crazy, but I'll find it eventually and we'll have it in the show notes. But even if there wasn't all the rest of it, you know, I think that when it comes to hair colors, when it comes to haircuts, when it comes to how somebody dresses, when it comes to tattoos, you know, whatever it may be. Makeup. How much makeup do you wear? Do you not wear enough? Do you wear too much? All of those things are personal expression. And there are people who cannot, even if they are not connected with the person, cannot see themselves to a point of that is how that person lives their life. And I think, I mean, she's 23. That's such a baby. I say that with love. But, you know, when you're 23, sometimes it's hard still to be able to stand up and say, no, this is what I want to do. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But it doesn't impact how I express myself. And, you know, it becomes more about what the other person wants to see rather than what you are trying to do with yourself.
Yeah. And also she said that she hasn't had friends since high school. She's 23 now. So that's like 5 years ago. He's her only source of affection and support, whatever. And so she's doing whatever she can do to keep him from leaving. You know, if it means changing her appearance to some way that that's not her, she's willing to do that, which I think is so sad. Like, find you some friends, girl. Like, just.
And so she's in school, she's going to graduate. So there's opportunity there. Friends.
Like, just lean over to your person sitting next to you in class, like, hey, grab a coffee, something. Like, I feel so bad.
Well, and even if it goes to like the workplace, I think it's easy sometimes. Like, that honestly was one of the big things that I missed most out of moving away from working with other people in a cubicle right next to me, is I think those work relationships are very important in an adult's life. And I think especially for somebody just coming out into the workforce, that can be a great way to start making adult friends as opposed to college friends or going out getting blackout drunk every night friends or whatever you may be doing. I think there's work wives, there's work husbands, there's work besties, and all of those are important and valuable and are an easy way of finding and building relationships with other folks as an adult, because it can be hard to make friends and build relationships as an adult.
It's definitely hard. And the other thing that this letter was making me think of is when I was in high school, I dyed my hair every color of the rainbow. I dressed, it was high school, I dressed all the ways. And my dad hated the way I looked. And we went round after round over it. And what he always said was like, your appearance reflects on me when you're out. So he thought that people would think that he didn't lay down the law or wasn't raising me properly or whatever the things are, right? And of course, as a teenager, I was like, cool, my job isn't actually to be a reflection of you. Fuck off. But I mean, not that I said that to my dad. Well, maybe. But one of the things that
you only flip off your mom and she sees it in the mirror once. All right. That only happens once.
Yeah.
You learn.
Yeah. No, we had a very contentious relationship when I was in high school, partly because we were both stubborn in similar ways. But one of the things that I only realized later in my life, I think, was my dad grew up really poor. He grew up with a mother who was extremely concerned with appearances because since she didn't have very much money, her life was extremely curated in order to not feel ashamed, not feel like she drew the attention of people who would look down on her. And she passed those same lessons on to my dad. Like there were correct ways to act. There were correct ways to dress, to comport yourself, to speak to people. You used polite language, you were, all the things. And so my dad, even though he was trying hard not to raise me with quite the like yuckiness that his mom did, he looked at me and saw like a personification of all these ways that it would draw attention, dyed hair or weird makeup or weird clothes or whatever. And he had this part in his brain that was all about him and not about me at all. That was about his childhood, about his way of like interacting with people. And all he could do was externalize it to me because he didn't probably even know where it was coming from. And so one thing that I wonder about this guy is like, I mean, I hate him and I think he should go away. That's not in question. But just for curiosity's sake, I feel like there are people who have really specific ideas about like what femininity is, what heterosexuality is, what girlfriendness, like all the things, right? And I do wonder if it would be worth this letter writer asking some questions, being a little curious about like, what are the things that are being activated in her boyfriend by having her hair this color? Like maybe he's just a controlling narcissistic douchebag, but maybe also he's internalized a lot of stuff from society about the ways that women are quote unquote supposed to look, about how it reflects on someone to date someone who looks a way that goes against society. And like maybe they could actually have a cool conversation about it and he could take a look at all of the assumptions that have made him feel not secure enough to be dating her instead of doing what he's doing, which is externalizing them onto her instead of dealing with his own bullshit.
Yeah, somehow I don't think that healthy conversation is going to happen between these two just because she's so...
I love your optimism.
I love your... I mean, yeah, if they were like a real couple, but this seems like a really unbalanced, there's a power balance here that's just like off the chart.
And I think,
yes. Oh, go ahead, Leslie.
I was just going to say, like in relationships, you can be embarrassed about something about that your partner is the way that they present themselves. And it's on you to decide whether that's a deal breaker or not. And, so if it's a legitimate thing where I think that you look crazy or whatever, and I'm not into that anymore. So this relationship, either you can ask them to modify that. And if they're not going to, then you can walk away because that's your boundary. But that doesn't seem like that's what's happening here. He seems like he's trying to punish her And, you know, like not replying to I love yous and calling her a victim, that's beyond the pale. I just wanted to add that, like, I've been in relationships where, oh gosh, he looks really weird today. Can we help you with that? Or, okay, no, that's fine. All right, well, that's how you are. I guess I'm okay with that. Like, there's a point where maybe you're not okay with
that. Not that I'm picturing
yeah.
specific outfits or anything, or the fact that my husband wears boat shoes. Boat shoes, people, boat shoes. It's awful. It's awful. But yes, I also wanted to bring out, you know, if there was a bigger or a different age breakdown here, I think we could also throw in a little bit of the changing social mores for what is acceptable in appearance and in hair and in, you know, everything else in that, because, or also regionally, because regionally, like let's just take the septum piercings, for example, right? So that is, in some regions, that's very unusual to do. In some places, it's not, you know, that's a big, but it's changing, right? And so that's going to change. And just like having a tattoo or having pink hair or blue hair or whatever was completely unusual.
Yeah,
you know,
like even 5 years ago, you didn't see people over like the age of 20 with color.
Now you've got grandmas that are rocking it, right? So those social mores change as we're going along, and I think it's really interesting. There's I don't know what's going on with TikTok's algorithms, but I'm on like tattoo artist TikTok lately. It's very interesting, but one of the conversations that keeps occurring is people talking about face, neck, and hand tattoos, right? And how, unless somebody's that the artists basically set their own boundaries for when they will do that, because they are supposed job blockers, right? So, and again, that's right now, but it used to be like having any tattoos that were visible would have been, you know, people got sleeves for a reason, because they covered up, you know, all of that stuff. Or, you know what, you turn around, you've got your 40-some-year-old soccer moms like me who still have the tramp stamp on the back. Because why? Because I grew up in the 90s. So, you know, it all changes and it all varies. And I think that's something to think about as well, but obviously not the case with this one. But pretty soon, that blue hair is going to be boring.
Do you have a tramp stamp?
I do have a tramp stamp.
What is it?
How did I not know?
All right, here's the really bad part is I got my tramp stamp when I was in my 30s, because Jack was deployed and we had 3 kids by this point in time. He got deployed right after, I mean, literally like less than a month after I had our youngest child. So I made it that year, and that my tramp stamp was my celebration for that.
Oh,
yeah.
I like celebratory tattoos.
Yeah. So yeah, first tattoo, stupid in college. Still love it. Stretched out. Tattoos, hips, babies.
Oh yeah.
Things
my
happen.
first college tattoos all blurry. I'm thinking of getting covered. But yeah, like I had one of my bosses, one of my tattoos. I have a tattoo on my wrist, and it's fairly smallish, but she was like, oh, I hate it when professional people get non-professional tattoos. And I'm like,
what's a professional tattoo?
Yeah, do you get like ADA written on it, American Dental Association, with a toothbrush? Would that be okay?
So strange.
We have the best conversations. I love how everything goes and completely flips around.
I mean, your personal appearance, especially now, it's like
the Xerox code tattooed, or like
right. Oh, people do that. They get the barcodes. People get barcodes now.
Yeah. Well, even that, you know, like, you know how they could, like in archaeology, they can tell, or at least get an idea of when a skeleton is from, because what they're buried with, or what adornments like are carved into them, or since they're not going to have skin anymore, but that type of thing. And you know what, if we were mummified, they would be able to, you know, pick it out by the tattoos that are popular in that age. You really could. I bet forensic folks probably use that now. There you go. Plot funny story ideas.
Best argument for contemporarily bringing back mummification that I've heard this week.
So proud.
Preserve those tattoos.
On my
Preserve
resume.
Your tattoo.
With mummification. I like it.
Mummification. Everybody wants one. Well, just to further go down I think it kind of ties in our 2 things today about, you know, ignoring the abusive boyfriend part is personal expression and living in our society. I read a great article today because it is, I guess, Christian Slater's birthday today, the day that we are recording this. I don't know how old he is. It doesn't matter because I will love him forever, even though I know he's probably a horrible human. It doesn't matter. I grew up when I did, and therefore. But the article was all about the movie Pump Up the Volume, which I am devastated that you cannot find streaming anywhere. And I guess you really can't find it on DVD. Well, they were saying that you can't even find it on DVD anymore. I guess because the soundtrack is just so killer that getting all the permissions for all of that has made it basically.
I'm going to make you cry because I just gave that movie away on VHS to Goodwill.
Fuck you.
So I think I have the soundtrack somewhere. I do think I have the soundtrack.
You know what? I'm going to have to do that because I discovered the Pixies from that movie soundtrack, and the Pixies are one of my absolute favorites. So, but anyway, so going back, and it was talking about, the article was talking about sort of the nihilism, really, of the early 90s and saying, hey, yeah, the world is fucked, but you know what? We're still here and we've got to live our lives. And which the more you think about it, those movies that came out around then, Pump Up the Volume, Heathers, all of that stuff really did center around that. And I just think it's funny that here we are, 20 years later, 30 years later, it's all cyclical, just like fashion. And here we are dealing with all of these same questions again.
Yeah.
Like it never doesn't end. Everything old is new again. 30
well,
years.
But people are roller skating. Their rolling skating just goes like that.
We could go
like
shoot 70s
the duck. Music and stuff.
Yes. That was the only roller skating thing I could do.
I was at the mall and I saw these teenage girls and only the front of their hair was dyed. And I was like, I had that hairstyle. I dyed the front of my hair pink and blue when I was in college, I think. And it's like, that's the exact same thing from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
My child bought a bucket hat. All right. And I just looked at her and I said, number one, I had that. Number two, it didn't look good on me. It's not going to look good on you. I'm just letting you know that. You're going to look back with regret. She's still worried because she's what it's about.
You got to grow up. That's why at 23, what do you know? You're trying all these different things and hopefully you're getting support for your self-expression. And hopefully this person finds some other kind of support for their self-expression because that's what we need. And we get through it and we express ourselves in a variety of ways over the course of our lives,
Yes. And that is the thing. It changes, right? And you are supposed to be experimenting and trying out new things. That's the whole point, really, of your teenage and 20s to me.
You should do that your entire life.
Is being able to do that.
And I think you should do that your entire life.
Yeah, and that's why she needs friends, is because one of the things about friends is that, like, when you kind of like bring a new person into your fold, you're also bringing in this new person to potentially experiment alongside, or, you see them do something that you're like, oh, I love that, but I didn't think that I was allowed, but I guess I am allowed. And like the person that comes into your life potentially brings all of this like really beautiful material for your self-expression, and you do the same for them. And that's why this poor person really needs to go get some damn friends.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
where's
a
her
huge
family?
importance.
Like, where's
I know.
But it really is all about, I think that like it's a mindset thing, right? Both of these things, the experimenting and from the second letter and the hating people from the first letter. And it's like, if you have control over, or if you're like aware of your own mindset and of the way that you are responding to things, even if you can't always control it or change it or like make it whatever, it's like you have a better start at telling the people who you don't need in your life to get out of it, at being okay in moments when the world is falling apart around you. Like, I went to the post office this morning and I had to overnight.
I'm sorry.
I know, it was a nightmare. And the thing is, like, God bless Philadelphia, but I swear every single person who works in a post office here just is so mad about everything all the time. And probably with good reason.
I was going to say, if I were there,
to this episode,
right? I would be too. And I put the address sticker on the wrong side of the mailer.
Oh.
And
they get mad about that.
I think I put the address sticker on the wrong side. I'm really sorry. Should I go do it again? And she looked me dead in the eye and she goes, "Of course you did." Like, damn. Okay. And
you know what, though? This is coming from the city that threw batteries at Santa.
Can we?
Wasn't that y'all?
Story. That story drives me crazy because they never tell the full story as why people, it wasn't bad.
What was Santa doing? Why did Santa
Santa was drunk and threw up on a little girl. And the people around
so
him,
very Philly thing.
Very Philly, but although he was probably from Jersey. Sorry, Jersey, y'all crazy. But anyway, so people were like, there was like snow around the stadium, so people threw snowballs at Santa. There were no batteries in the snowballs.
So you know what? I think the batteries were the Yankee fans at
Probably.
Yankee Stadium. So yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
let's just blame it on you. Yeah, but that story, because it comes up in every single sports story about Philly ever.
I remember that now. I'll stick up for you. I'll put a little comment in every time. Yeah, well, Santa puked on a little girl. Christmas.
Philly had it coming. Philly, man.
Yeah, and he was from Jersey. I heard. I'll put it.
Say that because I'm from Jersey, so you know I can talk about Jersey. Anyway, we have this is how it is. We told you. Come on, we're totally professional. Everything.
Sorry,
is
the thing I was gonna say was, I like she said this to me, and I was like, okay, rude, whatever. But it's like every single time you encounter someone, you have the choice in that moment. Like it's never that one is the truth and the other is you lying to yourself. It's like it's always a choice. And so I could have chosen to feel really bad and feel guilty and be like, oh man, I just embarrassed myself and I inconvenienced this person and she was mean to me and she probably hates me and whatever. Like that's something I could make up in my head, or I could make up in my head like probably she's just spent the first 3 hours of her shift with like every single person doing every single thing wrong, because the post office is a strange arcane system that nobody knows how to navigate, including the people who work there. And so she's just constantly frustrated. I'm like, that is true too. Neither of them are lies. And like, it's up to me to pick the one that produces the feeling in me that like allows me to get through my day. And although that isn't always possible, obviously there are things in the world that are like, you can't just think different. I do feel like at certain points, sometimes all you can control is the inside of your own brain and the rest is just like chaos.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Yeah, totally.
And on that hopeful note, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us. Fabulous Leslie. Penelope, you all need to go download and binge read down the rabbit hole all of her books. Leslie, tell everybody where they can find you and all the other good information.
I am at lpenelope.com. That's my website. It's got links to all the social. I like Instagram the best. And yeah, Requiem of Silence is out now if you want to start at the beginning with Song of Blood and Stone. I also have some paranormal romance books too. So, and thank you guys for having me. It's so much fun.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you. So since both our letter and our segment were kind of similar, we had like really crappy people in them, or like one was about crappy people.
It's like the theme of our show.
That's the theme of the show. So I did steal part of this playlist title from our letter writer. So it's called "Mean People Suck. Do I Have COVID in My Soul?" And it has a couple of songs that were recorded during the pandemic on them. One is Level of Concern by 21 Pilots. Another one is Zen with K Flay, Grandson, and the X Ambassadors. So if you only listen to 2 songs on that playlist, I would listen to those 2 because they're like about what we're all living through right now. But I have Magic Giant on there. I have I Don't Know How But They Found Me, which is like the best band name ever. Neon Trees, No Doubt, Joan Osborne, The Cardigans. Brandy Carlisle's The Joke is on there. And this song brings me to tears like every single time I listen to it. But that was really for our segment because this is
she is such a great storyteller in her writing. It's phenomenal.
When she did this song at the Grammys, like not a dry eye in the house. It was just amazing. But yeah, so fun playlist. Check it out. Let me know what you think.
Fun playlist that will make you cry.
It'll like get you all like amped up about yourself and also bring tears to your eyes. Yeah.
What's more fun than crying? Isn't that like the epitome of fun?
Seriously, right?
Speaking of crying, here's a recipe.
Lots of onions.
Wait, am I cooking the recipe? Because that would make me cry.
No, that was a fake segue where you just put 2 things next to each other and suggest that they're related, like pundits do.
I like it.
Unrelated entirely to crying, this week's recipe, excuse me, is maybe the most popular thing I've ever made with people that I've made it for, which is Bona Petit's Flourless Chocolate Cake.
Yum.
So
Tell me more.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really easy. It is a chocolate cake that gets all of its rise from the egg and sugar, and then a chocolate, like a really simple chocolate ganache over top. What's so great about this cake is that you can put it any flavor combination in it. So I've made this cake dozens of times, and I've done like many different flavor combinations. And as a base, it is unbeatable. Like I'm not even a chocolate fan really, but I have done versions of this cake that have combos of stuff that even I was like, okay, I would eat this. So you can do, I have one that I love where it's kind of like a Mexican hot chocolate style.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, it's the only way I enjoy chocolate.
I know, I love it.
It's like cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, all of those warming spices, and then cayenne pepper. So it's like spicy. It has some crystal. You can do some like flake salt on top, and you can do that mixed into the batter of the cake or in the ganache or both. You can do a chocolate peanut butter combination, which is like my dad's favorite flavor combo. Since I talked about him, me not getting along with him as a teenager, I will redeem him by saying he's great. And also I will make this cake for him next time I see him. You can do like an Oreo cookie kind of thing. Really, you can do any combination. And since it's
summer, you do a peanut butter?
Yeah,
like could it be like a peanut butter cup one?
Yeah, that's what I just
said.
Yeah,
so what she said her dad likes.
Oh, I didn't hear the peanut butter part. Okay. Hi, I'm Avery. I'm awesome. I can't listen for shit.
Okay.
All right. Peanut butter. Dad's awesome. I heard all that part. Yeah.
Peanut butter chocolate. One that is exactly like that. So yeah, you could do anything you want. And since it's summer, I feel like it's like berry season. So I just made this for my sister, and she loves like chocolate with raspberry. So that's what I did. I added like a whipped cream, like a raspberry whipped cream on it. So it's super versatile. It's really, really easy. And it's naturally flour for like gluten free. So it's a really easy, a great dessert to make if you have like people, if you don't know what their dietary restrictions are, etc. Yeah, it's great. And I'll post the link, but it's just the Bon Appetit flourless chocolate cake. And I will make a list of like in the recipe of the like different
flavor combos.
Yeah, flavor combos.
Nice. Know what I'll be doing.
Well, I have to tell you, I did dial into my inner Roan yesterday because we had the grocery store last week had blueberries, like buy two, get one free. So of course I did that. And normally at my house, blueberries go in like half a day. So the fact they were still in there like a week later, I was like, oh my God, but I was like, I really need to make these. So I made homemade blueberry muffins for the first time ever in my entire life. And
your fingers.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And afterwards I grilled and I didn't blow up. Grilling, I'm super safe at. I have never harmed myself grilling. Yeah, knock on wood. Now
or the muffins.
Everything. The muffins were delicious, and they actually had Greek yogurt in them.
Yeah.
And none of the Greek yogurt hating people in my house noticed, which made it the best recipe ever.
Awesome. Yeah, you can't.
I love when you can hide things in food. I make these chocolate avocado brownies, and I took a pan over to my dad and stepmom's, and they were eating them, and I was like, "Oh, you like them?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, it's avocado and chocolate," and they were like, looked at it like it was like it just fell out of the sky into their hand and never seen it before. Like you've been eating it. Yeah.
I love that. But I think of you every time I try something new in the kitchen now. So there you go.
Just know that you carry my pride is with you anytime you are in the kitchen.
I hear you. You're my hype person in my head. Go, you can do it. You can do it. Watch out. Be careful by the
Use a pot holder.
Use a pot holder. I don't need a pot holder. So for recommendations, which has nothing to do with either blueberries or flourless chocolate cake. So we are continuing with the no segue. And I am recommending a good sort of background show that is actually quite enjoyable. And that is The Glow Up on Netflix. It is a makeup artist reality show. So it's like a reality competition show with makeup artists. and it's fascinating, and it's really cool to watch all of the different things that people do. And it's I don't know if it's just the shows that come out of England or what, but it is not like cutthroat. And so it's actually very relaxing to watch. It's not on the Great British Bake Off level of relaxing to watch reality shows, but you're also not going to go eat your entire pantry during it. So there's that bonus. But it's really cool. And they had one of the makeup artists that was on it this time was like brand new. Like she was just getting ready to graduate, or she had graduated, and she was into special effects makeup. So that would always wind its way in. So that was really cool to see too. So I recommend the Glow Up.
I really
check it out. You watch it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Okay. It is. It's just relaxing, and it's fun, and it's neat to see somebody else's creativity, how it pops out.
Yeah. Special effects makeup artists are they just blow me away. The people who do cosplay and they do all the like,
yes.
Just stunning talent.
When DVD extras were a thing, that was always my favorite one to watch, were the ones about like the special effects makeup and how they do the special effects. So cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
For my rec, I'm going back to music this week. And I can't believe I didn't mention this before. I think it's because it came out around the same time as the Garbage album that I recommended. But Willow, daughter of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, she's an amazing young woman. She's a model, an actress, blah, 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 but she's also a musician. And she has this album, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect because I think her first single, when people think of Willow as a musician, I think she's 11. She had that Whip My Hair Back and Forth song, right? So I think people think of that's her. Not that was a fun, like cute song for an 11-year-old to put out, or 12 or whatever she was. But her new album, it's called Lately I Feel Everything. And again, I think this was recorded during the pandemic as well. And it has Travis Barker from Blink-182, the drummer from Blink-182, did a lot of the songs with her. But it is a rock album. If you grew up in the 90s and you remember like Avril Lavigne and No Doubt and stuff, it's like girl anthem rock, with this like zennial twist to it. And she's in full existential crisis mode, but in like a fun, extroverted way,
extroverted existential crises.
Totally. Like
it's an EEC.
The first single is called Transparent Soul. One word, Transparent Soul. She has one called Don't Save Me, Naive. She does a song with Cherry Glazer called Breakout, which is unreal. And she has a song with Avril Lavigne herself. So this is like, it's a weird throwback to like girl punk from 80s, 90s or whatever. The entire album is 11 songs. It's 26 minutes and 9 seconds.
Ooh.
So it's like power punk.
Wow.
So like if you get a chance to check it out, it's called Lately I Feel Everything, and she just goes by Willow as an artist, and it's phenomenal. I love it so much.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now I'm gonna go also go back and listen to Hole, because to me that was 90s girl rock.
Okay, before I give you my recommendation, I have to show you something. For those who are watching in video, and I will just describe it for those who are not. So sitting behind me is my new friend Rupert.
I love it. Love it.
A whittled bear that I got in Michigan when I was on vacation last week, 2 weeks ago now. And the black part of his fur is from scorching the outside of the wood before carving into it. Mm-hmm. And so it smells like a campfire. And also his name is Rupert, and now he lives in my office, and I will place him.
Do you just sniff him? I would sniff him like all the time.
Yeah.
I just sniff him. So now he's going to be my new friend with the podcast, and I'll need to find a way to like display him so he's always visible.
Podcast mascot.
Rupert. Rupert. The campfire smelling bear.
Yes, my campfire smelling bear. I put him there specifically before today's podcast, and then sat directly in front of him the entire time, and only now realized that I had been blocking him. So that's Rupert. Anyway.
Way to steal Rupert's thunder. Way to go.
I know. Come on, bro. Sorry, Rupert. I'll put your picture on Instagram to make up for it.
There you go. We like that.
Okay, my recommendation. I'm so thrilled about this.
I'm scared.
I'm a couple years late, as always, about watching things. But I just finished Broad City, and I'm in love. I want Abby and Alana. Okay, so Timmy and I started watching Broad City because usually we watch a lot of like horror movies and scary things and murder and mysteries, and we were like, we need something light so that the last thing that we're watching before going to bed isn't like beheadings, you know, just
right.
sleep hygiene. And so someone recommended the show. I actually don't even remember who. Someone recommended it to Timmy, and she's like, let's try it. So we watched the first episode, and we're not super sold. The premise is cool. It's these two women who live in New York who are like best friends, and they are each their own particular brand of bananas. And it is a real situation comedy where they like if you've ever heard the writing advice, at any point always make sure the worst possible thing happens for drama, this show is like the personification of that advice. So it's like deeply wackadoodle. Disturbing. But it's also like, you know, they're these two white Jewish women in New York who are like young and pretty and not struggling in many ways and make their own struggles the center of everything. And so at first we were kind of like, ugh, this is like the last thing that we need to be watching right now. Plus it was like not queer at all, even though Alana's character was so obviously like very queer, and it felt it just felt off in the beginning. But we wanted something fun, so we kept watching it. By the beginning of season 2, we were like obsessed. It's so delightful. It really gets very queer. It's very weird. They engage with lots of different things that go on in New York. It's so fun. They're like immense stoners, which I feel like is something that has usually been under the auspices of men in media. Like usually it's men who are stoners, and it's not realistic. And to see these, it's freaking delightful. And just last night we were like looking for another show that might take the place, like be the same thing that Broad City was, and we watched 2 contenders, both of which failed. And at one point Timmy turned to me and was like, I think Abby and Alana would hate this show. And I was I know, and we hate it too. Like it was like this.
Wait, are you gonna tell me what the losers were?
The losers were Pen 15 and Garfunkel and Oates.
Okay, I haven't seen either of those. Pen 15 is like their acting 15, right?
Yeah, it's really, well, they're in 7th grade. So they're not acting 15, they're acting like...
Okay, but I knew they were like younger.
Yeah, young, 12, I guess. Anyway, it was boring, and their version of 7th grade, I was like, this is more like 5th grade. I don't even know what this is. And then Garfunkel and Oates was just cringeworthy. Awful to me. Anyway, nothing will beat Broad City, but I really recommend, this is a recommendation, but also I would love if anyone has a recommendation for me of a show that is Broad City-esque. I am very in need.
The first thing that came to mind when I saw the clips that I've seen of that show, and it's nothing like it, but for some reason I stick them in the same bucket, is Flight of the Conchords.
So Flight of the Conchords is what made Timmy okay to watch Garfunkel and Oates, because she was like, it's kind of like Flight of the Conchords, which she really liked and I didn't see. But she said this show was terrible in comparison, so maybe I will try Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah. Especially if you like music, because they, you know.
Well, here's the thing. I love musicals when they're done well and I like the music. But if they're not done well or I don't like the music, I find them utterly unbearable. So like it can really cut either way depending.
Yeah.
Have you watched Smigadoon? And I'm not racking it.
No.
Okay. I just want to say that because I have not made up my mind yet. I just finished it.
Smigadoon. It's on Apple TV.
It's on Apple TV, and it is like this couple, and they're
Keegan-Michael Key and
Cecily Cecily
from SNL. Cecily Strong and Keegan-Michael Key.
So they're this couple, they're doctors, they've been together for several years, and they're kind of at that breakup or move forward point, right? and they go on this hiking thing to become more together, and they cross this bridge and they end up in Schmigadoon and they can't get out, and everything's a musical. It's like a musical come to life. And
the cast is insane. The cast is like everyone you could possibly think of that would be in something like that is in it.
Yeah. and so they have to get through, and I can't make up my mind, because on one hand, if I love a show, I will binge it in like really short time. This one, I would be happy to miss a couple of weeks and then catch up. But then I watched the last episode in the airport in Chicago on the way back, and now it could have been just lack of sleep, but I was crying in the airport at the end. So the end really had a great emotional punch to it. But I just was getting annoyed by it. So I'm not recommending that, but you may like it if you like that sort of musical theater mixed with
what was
a really sort of indie sense of humor.
Like, was it like
what I got from that?
Because what was the one that was on NBC? Was it Gallivant that was on NBC?
I tried to watch one episode of that and I was out.
Yeah. But I know people who loved it. And then the one that was the English one that was set in the seaside town was like the same thing, but it was like an English version. Anyway, people loved it. I didn't.
To be honest, the only musical TV show that I have ever loved is Smash. I loved that. I loved it.
All right, so we need a Broad City replacement.
Check out Flight of the Conchords. I even listen to the music sometimes, like just for fun, because that's out there. But anyway,
that's how Theo deals with hating people.
I listen to music that I already love.
Well, and just to be clear for anyone listening, Broad City is not a musical, even though
no.
Musical things.
Yeah, like I said, they're nothing alike, but for some reason, every clip that I've watched of that show, I was like, oh, I should watch Flight of the Conchords again. Like, it just, for some reason, this shows are connected to me. I don't know why.
That makes sense.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for spending another episode with us here at Dear Romance Writer. Please send in your letters. You can submit them anonymously at dearromancewriter.com. There's a little button at the top says submit a letter. Send her in, folks. Send her in. Also, please send in or shout out to us on social media your ideas for Broad City replacement for Rowan. We need that. And
or if you have recommendations generally, like we would love to hear your recommendations.
Yes, please. And if you guys have advice on how to, pry out the COVID in your soul, let us know, because we would happily share some of those ideas for sure. So thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you at the next episode.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.